Well, good morning. Today we are off to Bellevue Farms, and this is an apple farm, apple orchard, with a really interesting business story. I think that's what today is likely to be about. We are only about an hour out of the city, so one of the important points about this farm is that they are very close to heavily built up urban areas, which is great for finding clients. But on the other hand, one of the challenges that they're facing is that as they try to grow and expand, they can't buy more land around them. It's either not available or it's just too expensive and it's not justified. So they see themselves, they've been going for a long time, it's family business. Nick, who we're going to speak to, went away, did his thing in the city and then came back, which is often the story. And he has ambitions for this farm. So it's going to be very interesting to see what challenges they face as a medium-sized enterprise. And there's a particularly interesting sort of starting point to the story, which is that they had a hail event many years ago that decimated their crop, and that rather than them treating that as a disastrous event or writing it off to bad weather and trying the same thing again the next year, they use that as an opportunity to start making cider, apple cider, and that has become their business. So very interesting from a business perspective today. I'm looking forward to seeing what Nick has to say, and then afterwards we can have a chat about what I learned and go from there. You personally spent years working as a designer in Melbourne, a senior designer at Taboo Group, building websites and interactive media. So that's interesting because a lot of people who farm don't have that side to their experience. And then you walked back onto this 70-year-old apple orchard your grandfather Angelo bought in 1953
with his brothers.
With his brothers.
Yep. With his brothers.
So what's the one thing about running this multi-generation orchard that you could not have understood from a creative agency in the city, the thing that made you realise you'd made the right call, the right decision to change lifestyles?
How long
ago was that? That
was 2009.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm not quite at the 20-year mark yet, but I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. What's really exciting about agriculture now? Can I reframe the?
Yes, absolutely.
It like that?
There's
a couple of things in there, but with all of the automation that's coming now, I think we're in a really, really exciting time for ag. And we had a look at some of our machines that we've got out there picking the apples, but also some of the robots we're putting in on our production line.
And even the production line itself is, they get better, they're more efficient.
Yep, and as they move into automated sprayers and potentially picking in the years to come, and there's a lot of other areas of farming I think is really exciting, particularly from a technology point of view. We have to get better at that, or else we're not going to have the workforce to produce the food for people to eat. I always think it's a funny thing, like we put so much emphasis on making sure we've got internet connection and make sure your Instagram account's up to date or whatever, but where farmers are only making food, don't worry about it. It's
100%,
kind of like
100%.
I think that sometimes gets
and I think it's
forgotten.
part of the reason some of the smaller farmers get bullied by big companies, because there's historically, I think there's been a perspective of farming is some sort of vocation, like choosing to be a classical musician, and suffering is part of it. But as you've shown, no, if you take a business approach to it, you get to have a farm and have a business and dictate some of more of your environment. You get to dictate who you sell what to, what you produce, and things like that.
I think thinking a bit more about how my past experience integrates into the orchard, and particularly on the branding and processing side. When I started here at the orchard, my cousin Bernadette was also here, and we're both the same age, but she came into the orchard straight out of high school, and I went off and did 10 years of other things. And then when I came back into the business, one of the things I used to say was her biggest strength was she'd been in the industry for 20 years. 10 years.
And your biggest strength was that you hadn't.
And I,
Yeah.
exactly right.
So maybe it's a bit of both is
Yes,
ideal.
exactly
Yeah,
right.
a combination.
She had all of those relationships. She had all of that understanding of the seasonality and all of the pitfalls of that particular industry. Of course, we've kept that with Robert and Joe, my dad and uncle as well. But then to have me not so scared of technology, interested in automation, interested in software, and my experience with branding as well.
Yep, and communicating with people through social media and things like that. Older generations aren't very comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I'm potentially not very good at the social media. I'm a bit old for that too, but you know, there are lots of people that were able to help us with that.
Your grandfather Angelo and his brothers bought this property in 1953. Italian immigrants planting apples on what was then quiet farmland 45 kilometres outside of the city, and now we can see the suburbs you know, are going to be literally across the road shortly.
Quite literally, yeah.
Quite literally. So 3 generations later, you've named your cider line, the alcoholic cider line, Trattore, Italian for tractor. Did I pronounce that correctly? Trattore.
Did a better job than me.
How much of how you run this place is shaped by the migrant farming story your family carries? Because it's not really baked into your marketing, from what I see. It's there, but it's subtle. It's not like 3 generations, you know, you're not shouting it. And what is it about your grandfather's generation that you find yourself unconsciously repeating without meaning to?
What we are good at here is the problem solving and can do kind of attitude. I think that's probably the big thing that my dad instilled in us here is, and a little bit of that comes from, I don't think Dad would mind me saying, you know, naivety as well. We sort of head off going, we'll figure it out as we go. And I think that's probably the big thing that I'm going to sort of
carry forward.
Attribute to.
You're willing to have a go.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really what it comes down to for me on the spot.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'll think of something better later, but that's probably the one I'd say.
Yeah, but I talk to people about some of the differences that I observe in farming businesses. One of the big differences is that, especially on small and medium-sized operations like this, you've got a pretty advanced operation, but it's, you know, how many acres?
Yeah, so we're about 40 hectares.
40 hectares, so 100 acres.
Yeah, 100 acres, yep.
So not massive, not 10,000, you know, what have you. And yet, if you compare that, small and medium-sized farms, to any other sort of well-established business, we're starting a legal firm, we're starting a restaurant, we're accountants, or we're, you know, we provide lumber, whatever it is, there's this really predefined growth corridor that you walk down. When it comes to farming, you can chop and change. We were just talking about introducing chickens possibly, and you could decide tomorrow, we don't want to do this anymore, we're going to run cattle, you know, and you can do that, which you can't do if you're an accounting firm. Like you could do different types of accounting, but you still kind of, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think
farming has a freedom, but there's a risk with that.
Yeah, I think that it's, I think the hard part that you skip over with farming is that you tend to do a lot of work, maybe years and years of work, before you maybe see the dollar. If you start up an accounting firm, you're selling hours, right? So you're there, you sell an hour, you get paid at the end of the week. The risk is very low for...
That's it.
And you've very little capital deployed.
Yep.
I put a tree in the ground and I've got to wait 5 years before I pick my first apple, and that doesn't pay for the 5 years that I've had that tree in the ground.
Yeah.
And I think that's the really hard part. You say, you could switch, you could do whatever you want. I'm like,
theoretically.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And this is the interesting part about stacking enterprises. At the moment, the way you've stacked your enterprises, you've stacked them all in the same vertical.
Yes.
So apples, apple juice, alcoholic apple juice, apple cider, apple pulp. You see what I'm saying? You're stacking. You've chosen not to diversify into allied farming things like chickens. So you could say, we're going to have a free-range chicken operation that we're going to move around, and we're going to run them through through the orchards at certain times of the year, and we're going to produce eggs and sell eggs. I'm not saying you should do that, but as an example of something that is not to do with that initial vertical.
So thinking about that,
Why have you done that? Why have you chosen to stack so?
oh well, our tagline is we've got apples to our core. So we
Apples
know
to our core, boom, boom.
we know about.
I can hear
apples.
old Angelo saying, "No, they got the apples to our core." You know.
So we know about apples,
Right.
and that's a strength. By vertically integrating something, I've been pondering the last 18 months, whilst the supply of juice fruit has tightened up.
Yep.
Something that we've had the luxury of fairly free supply for the 3 years prior.
Okay.
Is whilst we might be vertically integrated and diversified, the other side of it is we're also
You're exposed.
And we're exposed in that same industry. And
Yeah.
so our orchard might perform better in times when the apple price is high, but our juice business suffers. So that is an argument to be looking at something else. I'm not sure the chickens are my future, but I understand the rationale.
Chicken,
you know,
the chicken scenario is interesting from a theoretical perspective, because it could potentially, it's integrated stacking. They eat bugs, they eat slugs, they add manure. That sort of stuff. They scratch the ground, and a big part of getting nutrients into the soil is that I love them
on a theoretical level. What I have to think about is what you're talking about is like where does our strategy lie?
Exactly.
To ensure that we're here for the long term.
Yeah.
And what we have is the encroaching suburbs,
Yes.
and a pretty clear directive from council that we are to remain in a green wedge. It's about sort of leveraging that opportunity. My understanding is that they have turned their back on the right to farm. So the fact that I'm here first doesn't give me much of a leg to stand on should someone be unhappy with us.
Something that you do.
Something.
So you might introduce something like chickens and get complaints from neighbours saying we don't like the noise the rooster makes, or.
So we actually, given that we're a relatively small orchard, we want to bring the public onto our farm. So the other part of that vertical integration that you're talking about is to be looking at tourism.
Yep.
So and I've got a heart for education. I touched on it a bit earlier about the opportunities within ag for technology and those sorts of things. I'd love to see students coming here and seeing what opportunities might lie for them in agriculture.
Yep.
We've got lots of schools and that in the area. That I see that as it could potentially be part of our future as well.
Yep.
And even just tourism more traditionally, whether it be UPIC like we're running this weekend, people coming and doing tours and seeing how we make apple juice. All of those things are very much in their infancy here, but they're part of our long-term strategy.
And when you one of the things to consider when you stack enterprises is not all of them are necessarily or need to necessarily be hugely profitable. Sometimes it's just resilience or added value or community engagement. It doesn't always. It's not always exclusively a add more profit perspective. Sometimes it's just building up that resilience.
You're
et cetera.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And we want to start with the seed and then and hopefully have those things take care of themselves. And as long as they're doing that, then we're happy to keep adding and experiment with the next idea.
Now, talking about administration, things like that, there's a big difference between coming home from your design job on weekends to help with picking and signing on to lead a multi-generation business through the next 50 years. And when you joined Bellevue full-time, you discovered the business had no real oversight of accounting or cash flow, so that must have been an eye-opener for you coming from business. And one of the first things you did was write software, because you had a technical background, that replaced 3 full-time admin staff. Was that the moment you actually believed you could run this place? And what did your father Rob and your uncle Joe make of it when their son and nephew quietly rewrote the back office. You must have been popular at first.
Well, a couple little things in there. Our office right now, back office right now, is bigger than it's ever been. Simply because we're a significantly bigger business than we were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But systems is something close to my heart.
Yes,
and
me too.
when I arrived here, we didn't have email. We didn't have an accounting system that we could query.
Yep.
And we didn't have any sort of form of.
So it's inefficient.
Yeah, any sort of form of scheduling was very difficult. So I did set about and wrote some software because I wanted to know how many litres of one particular product we were producing and selling. So I couldn't sort of convince my team at that time to that there was data that we needed and they needed to change their behaviour.
Yeah.
But quite quickly those decisions were made by those people by themselves.
Yeah.
That this isn't going to work.
That's evolution. That happens.
And we were able to, and I had written some software over that period to say, well, what part can I speed up and collect data without interrupting the existing sort of process.
Yep.
So, for example, invoices were handwritten and shipped with the product and then typed in manually later.
Yeah.
So they were typed into text fields, they weren't using product codes. So I was unable to query any data that they might be able to export. So this caused me a lot of
duplication of work.
Duplication of work, but also a lot of trouble when I wanted to make a business decision about what SKUs we're producing or increasing or decreasing in. So I made a little tiny invoicing piece of software that made it faster for them to make an invoice, exported directly into the accounting software, so sped up that process, still integrating with their own systems and accounting from that point on. I have very little experience with business at that point as well, so things like a general ledger code or an account code was a new concept for me.
But you understood that I need more information and I need efficiencies.
Correct. And also we started tracking things, and I remember sitting down with Robert and Joe and I'm like, I'm not sure how we're going to need this information, but I'm sure that we're going to need it at some point.
Yeah.
And they were very, very much on board. Well, Robert and Joe weren't that much older than my dad. Robert wasn't much older than me now when I joined.
Yep, just making sure that's still working. Go on.
Yeah, no, Robert wasn't much older than me when I joined the orchard, but still very, very progressive thinking there. So they were very early to adopt those sorts of things or trust someone else.
Trust somebody who they had confidence in.
Yeah.
You know, so many small farms, small, medium-sized farms, lose money on products and don't even realise it because they just haven't. As I say, they treat it as a vocation, and surely people will want my chickens or my eggs or my beef or my pork or my fruit if I produce it, and they don't do the math on it. I think if you hadn't done that at some point, the business would have started to struggle. And when you came in and you did that, it might have seemed a shock to the people at the time, but the outcome speaks for itself. The business has grown, you've created employment. For any business to succeed and grow, it has to be pragmatic. And you can't just say, well, there's 3 people, we only have work for 2, but we'll keep 3 people. You know, you have to find a way to make those 3 people productive ideally. If you have to, sometimes you have to let people go because otherwise the business doesn't survive. And now how many people do you employ?
Yeah, so we've got about 40 people here now. Yeah.
So 40 people. So to me, that's... do you think it's possible that in many ways you saved the business?
I came at a good time when Robert and Joe, I think I mentioned to you the other day, Dad asked for a bit of a hand to help with scaling, and I said I'd give him a hand for 3 or so months, and I never led. Yeah, it's nearly 20 years later. But look, being able to have that data and be able to tell a story about why we might be able to make a particular investment and understand how that might impact the business, I think that did allow us to take some chances. Yeah. Or take some steps forward.
And make some tough decisions.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we've got, there is an element of success bias, right? So we're standing here looking at these great products, but I could tell you a story of
one that didn't make it.
Plenty of ideas that we went on our gut that maybe that didn't succeed. And as you get bigger, those making that decision actually has a bigger impact. So
more at risk, more people involved.
Yeah, more money,
more cost.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and you've got bigger debt, so your monthly commitment is higher. Yeah, so it all sort of scales. Yeah,
I think people should run. I talk about farm and the farm business, and the farm business. The farm might be your passion, but the farm business is what pays you, it's what pays contractors, it's what keeps the community going, and you have to treat it like a business. You can't, you have to be...
Well, when you've got 40 people running around 40 and a lot of capital deployed, that's the only way we have to look at it.
Walk me through what it actually takes to grow apples and pears at scale here. So you've got 40 people on staff roughly. Around 70 at peak, is that right? Something like that?
So it builds right up based on, harvest time. We have a lot of labour hire. We have labour hire most of the year round.
Most of the year round. Yeah. So varieties from Pink Lady to Bravo to Burbusque.
Yeah.
Plus the heritage cider apples you planted in 2012.
Yep.
The bit that surprised me most is you're running a biodigester trial, which we had a look at with APAL, that turns the apple pomace from your juice factory into a soil conditioner, and we talked about you're still learning about what the ultimate value of that really is.
Yes.
That goes back onto, goes back onto the orchard.
Yep.
What does a working week here actually look like, and where does the designer in you show up in how you have set up systems?
Well, I sometimes joke about how I'm not quite sure how I haven't developed schizophrenia.
You probably
maybe I have.
You maybe have.
But no, look. So a week for me, is that kind of what you've got down?
Yeah,
what is
like
a working week?
What's it like?
So it's very from my point of view, I find it the diversity of my role a challenge.
You find that a challenge? Okay.
Yeah,
Some people love that. So,
I do.
Yeah.
I think it is a feature.
Interesting, but challenging.
But in one day I can be a HR meeting. I can be behind like the other day. I'm driving the truck up to Pakenham with fruit on it. Then I'm finance meeting, and then I'm in a design meeting, and then I'm writing code for the software, and I'm building the website, and all of those things. And so I think it's definitely comes back to what we were talking about earlier, is just like we have a go and we figure it out.
Yeah.
And we don't always know what we're going to need, and we're willing to sort of take a chance ourselves.
Why do you find that challenging?
The big thing would be like, am I doing that well enough? Yes, we got through, but I'm in the middle of a website relaunch right now, and I'm doing a lot of that myself. And that's taking longer than it should, and am I doing that the best?
Yeah.
But the other side is, if I don't have the money to pay someone else to do it, so at least it's getting done.
Right.
So, and that's kind of how we have to think about each of these steps.
Have you heard the saying, Elon Musk quoted this, but it was by somebody, he was quoting somebody else, that describes entrepreneurship, which is any small, medium-sized business has to be very entrepreneurial. That's what we've been talking about. You have to stack enterprise. You have to be willing to try things. Some things don't fail. People think that that's not the case. If you look at, for big businesses, but if you look at any of the large businesses, Apple, Amazon, the number of failures that they've had, Microsoft, way outstrips the number of successes they've had. If they try it, doesn't work, they shut it down. But they can afford to do that. Smaller businesses, it's painful when they do that. But the saying is, being an entrepreneur, especially at the head, the CEO, the boss of an entrepreneurial business, is like chewing glass staring into an abyss. You're chewing glass because all the problems that nobody else can solve, you have to solve. That's your job, is to find the worst, most pressing problem and fix it. That's the nature of the job. And then staring into the abyss is because you're always risking running out of money or having financial problems. So chewing glass, staring into the abyss. But that's the nature of the job, and some people thrive on that. I kind of feeling like you find it stressful, but you thrive on it.
Probably the thing that's hard is upwards pressure on interest rates, and we've just taken such a big step. I think if we were...
when businesses have big loans, 0.5%, 0.25%, that's a big difference.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was just taking you through some of our new expansion, and we're super excited about it. I believe in all of those decisions we've made, but they haven't begun to hit their straps yet, and that's where this time right now becomes
so this
a bit stressful.
This is like the biochar,
No, I'm talking about the new factory and
big expenditures.
Yes,
big expenditures.
Yeah, for a business our size.
For a business,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We are very excited about the future, and we're very excited about Summer Snow and Active Apple. We just need to keep getting behind those products. But
I remember seeing an interview with James Packer talking about big for a business of our size, but I think the pressure is the same all the way through. The pressure on a guy who's got a fruit shop or a fashion shop in St Kilda of, you know, should I borrow an extra $5,000 to redo the shop? The pressure that person feels at that scale is no different to you borrowing millions, or to someone like, I remember seeing James Packer being interviewed, and they said, you know, he eventually started to have mental health issues and a lot of health issues. What happened? And he said when his father passed away and he bought his sister out, he had billions of dollars of debt. But he was worth billions, you know, he's never going to be poor, no matter what happens. If everything collapsed, you know, he still probably would have had 100 million tucked away, right? But he said the pressure of that debt and the responsibility of that debt made him sick, and eventually he started to have mental health issues. I'm sure there's other stuff going on in his life. But what I thought was really interesting was that whether I talk to people on 50 acres or a business like this that's becoming a significant medium-sized business, or any of them, they all feel the pressure the same way at their scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. We've done the maths. We took a leap.
Yep.
We had a little bit
you
of help.
Believed in what you were saying.
We had a little bit of help from the state government as well. We're really excited about the journey, but every month I have to find a fairly big number. Yeah. And I've got 40 families that I've got to feed on top of my own. Yeah. And that is definitely a stress that we face. And I think the thing about farming is built kind of ingrained is that, don't worry, we'll get it right next year, and we'll get the crop will be right next year. You can't. And at some point you go, I just want to cash my chips in, or that may never eventuate. Yeah. You know, and similar to what you were talking about earlier, at some point, you know, Dad's going to want to realise that, and that's going to put. So then there's debt. There's because you've got to buy somebody out, or. Correct. So everything gets harder. Yeah. I think as humans, my personal perspective is that as humans, we're at our best when we're growing, and the reality is, you could probably say, you know what, I've got enough of a pension. I'm going to retire. I'm going to buy a little house an hour from Melbourne, pay it off. There's a reason why we don't do that. And we don't do it because we like to build things. We like to grow things. The trick, I suspect, is not biting off more than you can chew. You know, pushing a little bit, but not so much that you... I may not have learnt that. No. All right, well, you're 45 minutes from the Melbourne CBD. Yep. Your orchard is zoned green wedge, which means, for people who don't know, that it changes slightly, but it's all around Melbourne. There's a huge amount of farmland that is, you can't subdivide under 100 acres. You can only have one house per 100 acres, and it was sort of cut off to be like the bread bowl of the city. And the theory is that it'll never be rezoned to residential or anything like that. So there are some limitations. You are literally on the edge of the green wedge. On the other side of the road is residential. The suburbs are quite literally over the road. That's both your single greatest asset, because you've got thousands of customers there right on your doorstep, but it's also your single biggest constraint, which is what you told me, because it makes it very hard for you to expand horizontally
when there's no more land available around here, and you just mentioned this before, new residential neighbours might generate complaints about spray carts or trucks. You know, you might introduce chickens and they might not like it for some reason, you don't know. We also talked about solar panels and how they can be integrated in orchards. You could try and do that, somebody might complain. So walk me through this green wedge zoning, how it actually shapes what you do here and what you can't do here, and where you think the line is between being protected by it and being constrained by it or trapped by it.
We have to continually adapt to the hand we're dealt.
Yep.
Right? So in a perfect world, I might not have the varieties that we've got in the ground. I might not have the blocks set up the way they are. I might have put in different machines at different times, but I can only make the decisions.
This has some relationship to green wedge, the varieties and things? How so?
No, well, I'm just sort of taking the constraint of the green wedge is just another
factor that you have to deal with.
That's right.
So what are some of these constraints of green wedge?
So,
or let's make it broader for the international audience. You know, being close to a city, so that there's this. You're right on the buffer zone between. Yes, we understand you're farming out there and there's stuff you need to do. And if somebody complains about noise from the dairy, the local township will say it's a dairy. But you're right on that buffer.
So trucks, for example, trucks is a problem. We love to have B doubles. They're efficient.
Yeah.
It means volume in either coming and going. We ship B doubles of juice.
Yeah.
We receive B doubles of fruit.
One truck, twice as much.
Right. Not all of the roads are gazetted for B double usage. Right. Now the council have said that we're allowed to do it at the moment, but I worry, I have a fear that they're going to change those rules and make that hard for us. And if they do,
that's a cost to you.
I don't know what we do at that point when it does make things a lot more difficult. That's just one
example.
Yeah.
Okay, that you wouldn't have if you were 2 hours from the city.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And they haven't done that. Let me be clear. But that's the sort of risk that we have to play with now. If we were to be able to subdivide and take the resources from generated by that subdivision, we could then set up a better processing plant, and that's where I think that's a really positive aspect of people that are able to cash in and do a big enterprise.
Because green wedge didn't exist when your grandfather bought this, right? It wouldn't have been green wedge.
Yeah.
So he would have bought it, classic Italian long-term financial family playbook, buy land that is in the next 150 to 100 years going to be rezoned, and you get a big final payday. And the government last night also introduced some more rules about capital gains tax on investments. I guess that would affect land. They did introduce some rules, I think, last year that now, if this wasn't green wedge and your grandfather had sold it 5 years ago, then he would, and he made it his permanent residence for a year, he would have been able to take all his capital gains. If he'd paid $1 million and sold it for $5 million, he takes the $4 million. Now the government takes half of that $4 million. Mm-hmm. And, because there's a capital gains tax on subdivisions now. So if this property was subdivided 10 years ago, your family gets the benefit all to themselves. Now the government takes 50% of that, and
they take it. Are you talking about the unrealised?
It was both.
The windfall gains tax.
Yes, exactly.
My understanding at the moment.
My
understanding of windfall gains tax, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure on this, but my understanding is that it doesn't relate specifically to farming properties actually exempt from the windfall gains tax. But the problem with that is, from an investment point of view, is that that tax is actually payable at the time of rezoning, not at the time of sale.
Or you have to pay interest.
Yes, exactly. And
so you're saying that farms are actually exempt from from that? I'll double check that one, and I'll put it in the comments. It's really interesting.
I don't think farms, specifically under the windfall gains tax, if that's the one you're referring to.
The rezoning, the tax that they introduced on rezoned land,
right.
that if it gets rezoned and the value goes up, the land valuation increases.
Let's just say it's not, right? Farming's not exempt from the windfall gains tax.
Yeah.
And and they did rezone us, I wouldn't be able to afford that interest bill.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah,
now
you'd be obligated to sell.
I'll be obligated to sell. So I think it could be used as a bullying tactic. And that sort of thing really.
But the whole
scares me.
point of the green wedge is theoretically it will never be rezoned.
Theoretically, that's right. So what I want to do is I want to grow the business. I'm not here to have the status quo. Right?
Yeah.
So there are certain things that I will want to expand into. I have education as I think I mentioned before, something that I'm quite passionate about. Tourism's a big part. All of these things can be supported by the green wedge zoning.
Encouraged.
Where I worry is if my shop starts to expand into support other local produce.
That's what I call the
events
Jeremy
and things.
Clarkson effect.
Yeah. So we start to do that.
You upset the local council. And
That's it. But by and large, the council's been really supportive of us and our business, and I'm really hoping that Cardinia Council's really along for the ride with us and help us.
Is it accurate to say then that they're very supportive? They just want you to get on board with the evolving vision of how your land, now that it's right next to the suburbs, it's no longer an appropriate place to have a factory pig farm.
Yes.
And so, they want you to evolve with that, and as long as you're willing to evolve with that, the hope is, generally speaking, that they're pretty supportive of what you do. If you turn it into a business where you're getting 3,000 tourists an hour, it becomes a problem. But if you can make it more of a high value, lower numbers.
I'm hoping that as we start to formalise our tourism offering, that we become something that the encroaching suburbs see as an asset rather than
somewhere to go with. I just saw a couple here before with their kids. They've obviously brought their daughter down to have a look around. Fantastic. All right, so let's talk about money directly, because this is the thing nobody will tell you straight. From the same kilo of apples coming off the same tree, you're now generating fresh fruit sales, branded juice through Summer Snow, branded cider through Trattoria, organic apple cider vinegar, and direct hospitality and venue revenue through Bellevue Farm Gate. Roughly, how does the income split across those 5 streams? I'm not asking for confidential information, but to give somebody who's thinking I could do that, how does it split across those 5 streams today compared to when you were just selling fruit wholesale? And what does each one really earn per kilo of fruit it consumes? And which is interesting, how much goes in and how much you get out in that mix. But also just generally, as I say, this is for somebody who might think, I'd love to do that with my orchard or something like that. What's the reality of the experience behind it, how all those things stack together? And we have some miraculous potato cakes here that we're going to eat before they get cold. These potatoes were grown in the back of his ute.
Okay. So we think about the business as having sort of 3 main revenue streams. Our tourism offering, our orchard and fruit sales. So it's the orchard specifically, and then our processing revenue.
So tourism, orchard, processing.
Yep. Okay. Now, there is a few other things that we have in there, like we do toll processing, we do contract processing. There's packaging of product, not even necessarily apple juice. All of these things are activities that we break down. But if we just look at those, the revenue from tourism's fairly minimal. But if we look at a split of, say, sort of around that 10 to 20, depending, 20% is our fruit sales.
Okay.
And then our 80 to 90 is on our processing revenue.
And that's wholesale, if you like. That's revenue.
That's revenue.
So and say again, tourism is 10 to 20%?
No, tourism's so small that it doesn't really.
But it's community value and all that sort of stuff. So it's intangible value.
And it's part of we're just starting the tourism journey. We've been at it for a long time. We've done fruit sales here for as long as I can remember. And we've had the shop going now for well, it's for nearly 10 years.
Okay.
A manned shop, a staffed shop, if you want to phrase it. But we're really now like I said before, now we're really starting to formalise it. Okay, we're running a UPIC program over the harvest. I've got someone leading up tours throughout the week. We're also doing just in its infancy, apple education for kids to come on and see how apples are grown, but also how they're processed. All of that part of it, still very, very low revenue. But if we look at the growing as opposed to processing, we're sort of looking at that 80 to 90%, 10 to 15% in the growing. Yeah.
So, in terms of profitability,
Yep.
they're sort of codependent, but I'm guessing there's a reason why you've invested in a whole new processing facility and everything, that there's value. That value add is not only revenue adding, but it's profitable. It's more highly profitable, let's say, than selling an apple.
When you're an orchard our size,
Yeah.
and we don't own any IP varieties, we don't have any sort of weight within the industry that we could move the needle. We're sort of beholden to what the industry
Demands,
yeah, and the stakeholders there. So from our point of view, to create value, and probably coming a bit more from my marketing background, is having a brand that we own, that we can get behind, whether that be Summer Snow, Active Apple or Tratore. These are the sorts of things that we're able to develop and what I want to invest in. So very big heart for the industry, my involvement with Fruit Growers Victoria, and the industry in general.
If I read between the lines of what you're saying, these products are yours. You own them. That's your IP, and you're building IP that you own, whereas you don't have that in a particular fruit or something like that.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay.
And if I was one of the bigger farms or marketing arms within Australia, then maybe getting an IP variety.
You would take a different approach.
That's right.
So what the approach you take is relative to your scale.
That's right. Yep.
This is going back to the turning point, I think. 1998, a freak Australia Day hailstorm hit the orchard so hard, the unpicked crop was blanketed like snow, and instead of writing the season off, which I think most farmers would have done, most orchards would have done, your family installed an apple juicing plant.
Yeah.
And that's what brings us to today. So the product line you now ship across Australia exists because of a catastrophe. Take me back into that summer. What did the orchard actually look and feel like after the storm hit? What was the conversation around the kitchen table? And what would have happened to this business if your family had made a different decision?
I was in my early 20s at that point, and I know it had a very big impact on my dad and my uncle, and that was not a very nice time for the families.
Financial pressure, we've put all this effort into this crop, the trees are damaged.
So I'm one of 6 children, and Elizabeth and Michael and Bernadette, who you met earlier, they're a family of 7 children. So we have 2 guys who've just bought the farm off their dad and uncles, and as they move into the high interest rates of the 80s.
I remember they got up into the teens.
Yeah, I think even
higher.
Even higher.
Some for business would have been into the 20s.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
So they come out of that into the recession of the 90s. Now you've got a beautiful crop on the trees, and it gets wiped out. This was the one that was going to keep the doors open. So I do know I don't have very particular memories of the storm itself. What I do have memories of is the pressure that came shortly after. Yeah. It was, like we said, it's nearly 30 years ago now. I know that my dad, my Uncle Joe don't look back on those years particularly fondly. They were very, very, very hard financially and very, very hard mentally as well. I don't think that it was easy on anybody, and the families writ large, not just them personally.
What were the choices for them?
Well, the bank, they didn't have a lot of support from the bank at that point. They were about to head off on an adventure that they knew nothing about. And
Meaning juicing.
Juicing. So, I mean, if you get a machine that can crush the apples into juice, but then how do you preserve it in the bottle?
Yeah.
How do you
meet all your legal obligations?
How do you
find
get a label on it?
distributor or
How do you-
retailers?
yes.
How to put a label on it? Yeah.
How do you, exactly. How do
Handle
you sell
returns.
the product?
That's one nobody ever thinks about is how do you handle returns?
All of those things. And it's kind of like when you're about to become a father, you probably wouldn't do it except for the naivety, right?
Oh, let's call it naivety. Let's call it naivety.
So,
Except for your excitement at the point of conception. Yeah.
no, like, I mean, it's a.
It all sounded like a good idea. You know what they said? What they said. My family's half Catholic, half Protestant, so I can make jokes about both sides. Now they say to Catholics, if you can figure out what's causing it, you can stop. You know.
Well, the point being that it's a difficult thing being a parent, and it's and the adventure is.
Well, what do you think would have happened if they decided to double down? Just write the crop off, keep going. Do you think the business would still be here today?
That's a question you'd have to ask them specifically. Like I said, I wasn't involved with the business at that point. Another 10 years on.
But from what you know of the industry and other farms that just kept going the way they were, didn't?
I think that the debt level at that point was, I don't know that they had a lot of options.
They had to find something.
It was that or sell, I think was the decision. They still, we either sell the property or we try and
try to add some value and something new.
Now, farmers are inherently risk takers. We will start growing the crop in a week's time once we've finished harvest. We're back on to growing a crop that will grow for 12 months that will then sell in 12 months. And we'll put trees in the ground that we won't see anything for many years. And I think that that's a part of, particularly hort, that people sort of don't take a minute to really process. That we've got to put this tree in the ground and we won't see anything for 4 or 5 years.
That's why I say many people treat it like a vocation. Well, I do this because whether I get paid or not, I love it. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can take a more businessy, pragmatic approach to it, and sometimes people
I don't know what your other
that.
option are. I mean, you can't. I mean, I think very few people have a life.
How many
farming
farms?
As a lifestyle.
How many small farms
that's
actually, when you go and talk to them, they've actually got a side hustle, a day job, or something? That was the traditional thing up until quite recently.
He's
the local real estate agent. He's the local this.
Yeah, no, you can't do that with.
You can't do that.
No. I'm not sure that model is something that I bump into very often. People that I work with and that we do business with are farmers. They
full-time committed.
Yes. Yep. And they may have other things, like they may have another crop that they run. Maybe they're running cherries as well, or maybe they're running some broad acres on the back of their. But no, they are in this industry.
Yeah. Even in your case, though, you're making that biochar.
The digestate.
The digestate, right? Which is technically not farming as such. It's an added value product. It's not. Oh well, we grow apples. Let's grow more apples. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of diversity, but I agree with you that risk taking is absolutely inherent in farming. You don't do it if you're not.
We have taken a really big step on that new facility, and every day that's something that weighs very heavily on me. And
so why did you do that? Why do that? Why even bother?
Why even bother?
Start with the why. I'm guessing this went to the board. The family discussed it. Why do that? Why not say, hey, the business is doing okay. Let's tighten a few screws in there. Why go and make an investment to grow something?
If you're not growing, then you're going the other way.
100% agree.
Right?
I 100% agree.
We've got 25 years in this brand.
Yep.
At that point, if we didn't, we needed to do what we were doing better.
Yep.
So, like I showed you our new PET filling facility there, that we were doing a good job with our plastic, but we knew we could do better. And so that was why we wanted to invest in that particular line. We have distributors that we want to support and grow as well, and they need continuity of supply, and they need
Yep.
security in us as well. So, I mean, the bit that I worry about with the investments is, when do you cash your chips in? You know, like we're always going to be under these debt-laden things, and that's the I guess that's the part that is a little bit
there's
daunting.
two things I would say there. This comes back, what you're talking about comes back to what I was saying, as using the example of James Packer. Each time you move up a level, as you say, things just conspire in the world of business and in just creation in general, that it just doesn't like things standing still. You know, there is for example, you have a mum and a dad and they have 4 kids. Well, that farm might have been fine for mum and a dad, but now it's not enough for mum and dad and four grown kids, right? And so do the kids leave, or do we want them to stay in the area? Well, now we need to grow. There's always something conspiring to do that. So I just absolutely 100% agree with you that you are either growing or you're going backwards. I really don't believe that they're standing still. It might seem like it at times, you get a little moment of peace, but really, do you think that debt is inevitable? Because we could go back probably to your grandfather's generation. They would have said, you save up for that. You want to build that extra factory, you save up and you put one room on, and you know, they sort of do it like. Do you think that nowadays, in the reality of business, debt is just unavoidable, or are there other options?
I'm sure that there are other options, and maybe people smarter than me have a better way of doing things, but we are always fairly heavily leveraged.
Yeah.
That's just the way we've structured
and that's
our business.
Why? To enable you to grow more quickly?
Yeah, so it's isn't that what they say? The fastest way to outperform the market is with leverage.
Yeah.
But I mean,
or hit them over the head with a stick.
it is a constraining factor though.
Yeah.
I don't like the pressure. But, you know, sometimes we've got to do what you've got to do.
And as I said with that James Packer example, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, debt is stressful. There's a person watching who's 43 years old, sitting in Melbourne or Sydney or Texas or New York or London or whatever, and they're very good at what they do, they're good at their job, design, law, finance, engineering, whatever it is, but that doesn't feel like it's enough anymore. They have a mortgage, a partner, maybe kids in school, they're looking at properties on the urban fringe, you know, somewhere within commutable distance of a major city, wondering whether the green wedge constraint or something like that, being close to the city wherever they are, that you've turned into a business is real or made up. You're the closest version of who they could become. What would you say to that person? I'm going to slightly change the question just to say, what would you say to somebody who's thinking of making the sort of change you wanted to make, who wants a life that's more connected? They don't want to go to the middle of the countryside and do something hardcore farming, something more like you. What would you say to that person?
Be prepared for a pay cut.
Right.
And I'm not sure that going into agriculture or as a lifestyle is the right motivator. I think the hours aren't going to be shorter.
Yep.
Stresses aren't going to be less.
Yeah, you've just talked about that. Yep.
And the learning curve is steep. I was very fortunate that I have and still have two people that have grown 40 crops and their experience, and I was willing to plug into the network. The network's available, particularly over the last 10 years.
Yep.
Whether that be with Fruit Growers Victoria, Apple and Pear Australia, and the growing community. If you're not willing to do those things, I think that makes it harder. But I don't think you would pick this as a lifestyle choice. I think that, you just have to be prepared for the...
So if you're not choosing it as a lifestyle choice, why do you still do it? You know, why would they choose it? I mean, to me, it's obvious, although this is stressful and hard work.
Not for the record, but like every day, I do wonder. Like, what are we doing, right?
Yeah.
That
it's that stressful.
Sometimes, and right now is not easy. I've got oil, I've got diesel going like this, I've got interest going like this, I got fruit supply going like that. Now it's not easy.
So to somebody who is thinking of farming, why don't they just stay in that office? What are the upsides?
I think a lot of the reasons is, that's what they know. And for me now,
this is what you know.
Yeah, this is what I know. Yeah, 20 years ago was different. I didn't know anything about farming, and arguably I don't know everything about soil health or tree structure and physiology.
Yeah.
But I have learned a lot about business.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of people I trust around me who know those things.
Nice
more
people too, I have to say. Really lovely people, hand on heart.
Yep.
In French we have a saying, le poisson pue de la tête, which means the fish stinks from the head. So if management are rotten, then everybody else, you'll smell it down the line. While here, you smell nice, happy people. So management are obviously nice. Look, I think it's interesting because if I ask that question to somebody who's a lawyer or something like that, they all say the same thing. Wherever they are, they all say, I don't know why anybody would do this. And yet they do it, and they continue to do it. And I think that's the point that I would make, is that whatever you choose to do in life, if you want to do it well and you want to push a bit and you want to expand and excel, it's going to be hard.
Don't misunderstand me. I'm proud of what I've been able to do with my dad and alongside my cousins and my uncle.
Yeah.
And I guess when I started here, my Uncle Joe said, we just want to see what we started continue.
Yeah.
And I guess probably deep down, I'm having those same feelings after 20 years. I want to realise all of that.
You've got legacy.
The problem is that as farmers, we're not very good at realising the sunk cost fallacy, as they say.
Yes.
And
yes.
This is the big problem.
Everything that's sunk into
this. Why take on a project like our big factory down there?
Yeah.
Because it was that, or we just keep doing what we're doing, and what has it all been for?
Slowly, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nick. Look, honestly, we've spent a bit of time. You've unfortunately got to go to a meeting, but we've covered so much. I really appreciate that you've given a really honest perspective on the pros and cons. I talk to so many people in farming and different types of farming, and it is tough. But then I talk to friends who are in insurance. Oh, it's so stressful, and it is tough. If you don't have a reason to be doing that, like you said, in your case, you're starting to get this legacy sense. If you don't have something deeper that's running you, well, that's why, people decide to become, accounting administrators, turn up and work for the government. They turn up at 9 and they leave at 4:30. I just don't think you would ever be happy doing that. But I commend you on what you've done and on your family's achievement, because there are many, 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 many families that don't hold it together that long. You've done an incredible job. It's not easy, as we've seen, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to be a success. I feel like you're just getting your stride, but you don't know it. But there's an interesting video on my YouTube with Matt Wong where he talks about this. I forget what it's called, but it's the journey of entrepreneurship, where you get the high where you don't know what you don't know, then you get the low when you realise what you don't know, and then you come out of that where they come together. I feel like even though it's been 20 years, you're at that point.
Well, a lot of the credit I have to make sure is my cousins and my uncle and my
family.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I remember when Brett started with us, not long after I started here, and he said the problem is that I'm starting this business in this business with you, and there's nowhere to go. Your family is all at the top, But he's here 17 years later, right? And what we've done is build everything below him.
Right.
And that's, for me, is very rewarding. You ask what keeps me motivated here. That is a very big part of why I like to see things happen, seeing an opportunity I'm able to provide for my cousins' children and potentially mine, but even more immediately is the people that are already here with us.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful, I can genuinely say, come out and check this place out, because it's a wonderful atmosphere. The people are lovely. Thank you, Nick. Much appreciated. Bless you. Run off to your meeting. Just That was a very interesting meeting with Nick Russo from Bellevue Orchard. Let me give you the summary of my thoughts about that business, because it's not the sort of farm that I've interviewed in the past. It is a business that is right on the fringe. I'll show you what I mean. I've just driven out of there and you can see it's sort of farmlandy on the left, and in a few seconds you will see that that's it, we're in a residential area. So they are literally right on the edge of the outer suburbs. There's a big school there on the left and right. So it's quite a different vibe to the farms that I've visited in the past, in the sense that they are all at least half an hour from the suburbs, an hour from the suburbs, which doesn't sound like a lot, but half an hour at 110 kilometres an hour, 70 miles an hour is 35 miles, 50 miles, 50 kilometres. So it can add up. What was really interesting about this was the challenges of running an orchard are different to the challenges of running a mixed farm with cattle and chickens and things like that. And in their case, it's very different because they have chosen to open up retail. They have wholesale services. They make their own produce. So they've done a lot of value adding, and they've also diversified. They stayed in their lane, in the sense that everything that they're doing is around apple products. Apple juice, apple cider, alcoholic apple cider, apple vinegar, etc. But they have diversified from straight up farming, in the sense that, for example, they've moved a lot into wholesaling services and things like that. So it's a very interesting business to look at. From my perspective, they're at the point right now where they're going from small medium to medium large. And with businesses, there tends to be a sweet spot at each of the levels. So using telecoms, for example, there's usually the number one telecom, which is sort of the high-end brand. In Australia, that's Telstra. Then you've got the middle-tier brand in Australia, that's Optus. And then you've got the more affordable, good value brand in Australia, that's Vodafone. And if you try to fit in between those small, medium, large, affordable, high quality but not the most expensive, and then the luxury full bells and whistles product, when you try to fit between those, my observation is that that's where businesses really struggle. So in farming, if you're a small farmer, very niche, doing a few acres of market gardening, you can really focus in on that, maximize that. People like Jean-Martin Fortier do that incredibly well, and that's their niche. If they try to become slightly bigger than that by adding a bit of extra, some chickens or some this or that, or value adding without going up to that next level, that's where I feel costs outweigh returns, and there's a sort of a dead space in there. And cost outweighs returns is one of the reasons why that sort of thing happens. If you add a certain amount of functionality, suddenly you might find that you need a staff member, but you don't need 3. Well, the workload for one staff member and the amount of administration is in many ways the same as the administration and the workload for having 10 staff members. And so there's a cost benefit to having 10 staff members, in the sense that your overheads are dispersed across those 10 people. It's just one random example. So what I see with them is that they've now got 40 staff, and that goes up with seasonal work. That's getting into a decent sized business. They've got trucks coming in and out all day. They've got people visiting all day long, buying produce from them, coming with their families. To me, they are becoming a medium to large business. I don't mean large in the sense of a huge telecom or something, but I mean large in the sense of no longer small, certainly a significant, let's say a significant medium-sized business. I think that's the real challenge that they're facing as a business. Nick's a really interesting guy because he's the next generation coming through. He has done an amazing job. He's clearly working hard to promote their business. He's in an interesting position because he's got this legacy business that's turning over, that's making money, that's well established. But he's now pushing into new areas and new revenue streams. But in order to do that at that scale, it's becoming more and more expensive. What used to be, let's put $10,000 towards this, became let's put $100,000 towards this, becomes let's put millions of dollars towards this. But my takeaway is that the nature of growing your business, the nature of running your business, and the nature of adding more to your business, the fundamentals are the same, whether you're doing the 10,000, the 100,000, or the $1 million version. You really need to have a plan that covers everything from this is what I'm thinking of doing to I have a business model ready to go. Whether you decide to add chickens to your mix or eggs to your mix, or you're an orchard and you decide we're going to do pears as well, or whether you're doing what Nick is doing and becoming a more significant wholesale and retail player, you still need to do the math on the viability of what you want to do. If you want to add pears to your small farm, are there people who want to buy those pears, and will they pay a price that will make you a profit? Who's going to buy them? When are they going to buy them? Do they want them at the time that they're ready? If they don't, is there a way you can work around that? For example, Nick talked today about how they store apples, the way they store apples, and being able to keep them for a year or two. If you don't think that through, whether it's at the small, the medium, or the large level, then the likelihood of you failing is high. And the reason I say that is because the likelihood of most business ventures failing is extremely high, just statistically. 9 out of 10 are going to fail in the first year. Of those that remain, 9 out of 10 are going to fail in the second year. Of those that remain, 9 out of 10 are going to fail in the third year. So that's just business. The way you push the odds in your favor is by testing theories as much as possible, stress testing them before you actually undertake them. If you do that, then in practice, in theory, 9 out of 10 times you should come away from an original idea and say, it doesn't work as it is. It might need improvement, it might need changing, it might need abandoning. If you don't do that, then statistically you're almost guaranteed that whatever it is you think that is such a great idea is not a great idea or not a profitable idea in practice. That's just statistically the facts, that most business endeavors fail. So how do you protect yourself against being one of those likely failures? Well, you build out, you conceptualize it before you actually do it. So many people just avoid doing that. Sit down, do the numbers, talk to people, ask them if they want it. I don't know if it's the love of the adventure or it feels like it's crushing the dream. I really don't know, but the reality is, from my observation and statistically, that if you are not thoroughly stress testing your business models the way someone like Nick and his family have done, by talking to the bank, running financial simulations, talking to their customers, asking them what they want, how much they're willing to pay, maybe getting some agreements up front. If you're not doing that, small, medium, or big, in all likelihood, you're doomed to fail. And when it's your farm dream, that's maybe a dream that you will crush so badly you'll never live it. Farming, it already has so many variables. It's already weather dependent and dependent on markets, and fuel prices go up, so the tractor costs more, the deliveries cost more. There's so many variables that maybe other businesses have fewer of. And so I think your aim as a farm business and as an aspiring successful farm business owner, your aim should be to minimize as many of those risks as possible by thoroughly planning out everything you want to do. The reality is, if you're raising cattle or you're running an orchard or whatever it is you're doing, once that's up and running, you're going to be doing that year in, year out. What's something that you're not going to do year out? And that's probably what you want to do, right? You want to farm, you want to be part of that wonderful cycle. What you're probably not going to be doing every year is stress testing a new business or a new product. Even if you don't enjoy it, take the time to do it properly. Get help if you need it, so that you can then go and enjoy year after year of the part that you love, because it's not financially stressed, because it's not draining your resources, because it's not going to send you broke. I think what they're doing is courageous, and if they've got a big family behind them, so there's a lot of different opinions, but there's also a lot of different expertise, and if they stick it out and they just keep growing, then they should be very successful. I genuinely wish Bellevue Farms the absolute best.